Last month, Margaret Dalton was evicted from the apartment she thought was a gift from the city. She hadn't realized her so-called criminal son-in-law, owned the building. For years, she poisoned my wife's mind, painting me as a manipulative immigrant, but the rent they praised. My doing, a silent love letter she never read. Now she hides behind locks, afraid of shadows she created. 3 years ago, I moved Margaret and Harold into my best rental unit free. I thought closeness would build trust. I never told them I owned it, hoping they'd respect me as family first. But they assumed the worst. They whispered to Sarah about deportation, questioned my intentions. I overheard Margaret on the phone, calling me a leech. That day, I replaced the lease nameplate with Dalton Trust. My kindness fed their weapon. Sarah had no idea I covered her parents' medical bills. I used my business earnings quietly, never asking for thanks. I just wanted peace. But when Margaret accused me of hiding money, Sarah believed her. She asked to see my accounts. I handed over passwords. Her eyes scanned for betrayal that didn't exist. That night, I saw her journaling by candlelight. She wrote, "What else is he hiding?" My transparency became suspicion. Love eroded slowly, silently. Margaret began visiting Sarah daily. Always when I wasn't home, I'd find teacups and perfume lingering. Once, she accidentally left behind a pamphlet titled Signs of Financial Abuse. Sarah shrugged when I questioned it. Then came the questions: why don't you let me manage the bills? Her trust faltered. Our shared budget spreadsheet disappeared from the cloud. Sarah locked her phone. The tea stains became red flags. Each sip tasted like Margaret's plan brewing silently. Harold started showing up at my office unannounced, pretending to check in. He offered legal advice I didn't ask for, pushing me to protect Sarah's future. I politely declined. Later, I learned he contacted my clients raising concerns about my immigration status. When cancelled, Sarah called it a misunderstanding, but I saw her signature on a new will draft, one her father authored. The pen she used was his firm's giveaway. My foundation began to crack. One morning, our wedding photo vanished from the hallway. In its place hung a Dalton family portrait, Sarah as a child. Her parents proud behind her. When I asked, Sarah said it fell. Later, I found the shattered frame in the trash, my nameplate scratched out. That night, Margaret cooked dinner, calling it comfort food from home. Sarah smiled. I chewed in silence, my appetite drowned by the taste of erasure. I no longer belonged at my own table. Sarah changed the locks after claiming she misplaced her keys. I received a new one, different metal, sharp edges, it barely fit. One night, I came home to find Harold fixing our security cameras. He said it was for protection. Later, I noticed the footage folders renamed Suspect Miguel. Sarah insisted it was just file naming. I watched myself, pixelated and foreign in my own hallway. The surveillance wasn't for safety, it was a slow exile. It erupted over dinner. Sarah accused me of hiding assets. I laughed out of disbelief, not humor. Margaret slid over a folder inside receipts I'd hidden to surprise Sarah with a new car. Proof of control, she called it. Sarah didn't even look up. She asked for a separation. I stood, the chair scraping against tile like a scream. Margaret touched her hand. Harold opened the door for me. My home rejected me. My silence screamed betrayal. The next day, I returned to find my belongings boxed in the garage. A yellow sticky note read temporary per Sarah. The nursery door was locked. Our ultrasound photo gone. Margaret passed me with a smirk, carrying paint swatches. Time for a fresh start, she said. Sarah watched from the top of the stairs, unmoving. I whispered, "Why are you letting them erase me?" No answer, just the sound of tape sealing another box, another piece of me. Harold filed a police report, claiming I threatened him. Officers arrived during dinner prep, my apron still tied. I answered the door. They asked me to step outside. Sarah didn't protest. My son watched through the window, hands on the glass. I explained calmly, no charges, but the neighbors stared. Margaret wept on cue. Harold offered statements. My own family called to ask what happened. A false report doesn't stain records, but it stains reputations forever. Sarah handed me a legal document, Hostentuptial Agreement. Margaret had helped draft it. It limited my access to marital assets, restricted parenting decisions. I refused. She placed it on the counter anyway. That night, my phone locked me out of the joint accounts. My business card, once framed on the mantle, now gone. The locks clicked louder. Margaret hummed as she wiped the counter my side of the kitchen. I realized they weren't pushing me out. They'd already replaced me. A week later, I found my son's daycare file with emergency contact changed. My name was crossed out. Harold's was first. I confronted Sarah. She said it was just in case. I demanded answers. She walked away. Margaret whispered, "Real fathers don't need paperwork." I nearly snapped. Instead, I left. I stood in the driveway, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. My son's crayon drawing of our family lay on the passenger seat, my face half erased. Then came the fraud allegations. An anonymous tip accused me of embezzling rental income. I knew who it was. Harold had access. The audit froze my accounts. Tenants panicked. News outlets aired the family's concern. Sarah gave an interview, said she felt deceived. I watched it online, her voice steady, rehearsed. Margaret cried on camera. They called me a danger. The camera panned to my son's drawing, now pinned on their fridge. My name cropped out again. Margaret and Harold applied for housing benefits under shell companies using my properties. I discovered it during a document review. Their listed landlord, a fake name. Their proof of payment, checks I'd written years ago. They framed me as an absent, exploitative landlord while living rent-free. Sarah called it a clerical error. But I traced the LCS to Harold's firm. I reported it. The investigator smiled. But nothing happened. Their story had already become public truth. I tried to rent a new office. The landlord Googled me. She frowned. "You're that guy from the Dalton story." I left without a word, my inbox filled with cancellations. Clients cited reputation risk. Margaret's whispers became headlines. Harold's smug face on talk shows. Sarah silent. My LinkedIn was swarm trolls. Strangers hate. My name was no longer mine. It was theirs, a scarlet letter. They rewrote me. I was no longer Miguel, just the monster husband. Margaret launched a Protect Sarah fund. Donations poured in. I watched the campaign videos, stock footage, dramatic music. She sobbed about her daughter trapped by manipulation. Harold added legal threats. Sarah nodded beside them, unreadable. The video ended with my face blurred under "Do you recognize this man?" I reported the misuse. No reply. They turned me into a cautionary tale, one that paid their bills. The truth didn't matter. Their lie was prettier, easier to believe. The day I showed up at court with documents, the clerk whispered, "You again," and my evidence sat unread. The judge granted a temporary custody shift to Sarah's parents. My son now lived where I wasn't welcome. I requested supervised visits. Margaret oversaw them, noting everything. Once, she told him I was just visiting. He repeated it. "Visiting, Daddy." I bit my tongue so hard it bled. My own child now believed I was a stranger. Sarah filed for sole custody. The paper cited emotional instability, financial concealment, community concern. Every claim mirrored Margaret's talking points. I highlighted inconsistencies, but my lawyer shrugged. Perception wins. At the next visit, my son didn't run to me. He looked to Harold first. The man smiled. I offered a toy, he declined. Sarah didn't attend. I left the center feeling smaller. Outside, a protester held a sign, "Protect our daughters." My name beneath it. I tracked their finances. Discovered a joint account Margaret used to fund the campaign linked to Sarah's business. My name appeared on receipts. Misused. I printed them all, filed a fraud report. The investigator raised eyebrows. Promised updates. Days passed. Then Sarah accused me of harassment. Another protective order filed. My lawyer groaned. "You're chasing ghosts, but ghosts don't drain bank accounts. Ghosts don't erase fathers." They were real, and they wore smiles in court. Then one email changed everything. A former tenant, evicted by Harold, sent me a file recordings Harold bragging about cleaning up Miguel's mess, laughing about fake reports, voices clear. Dates matching court actions. I forwarded it all to my attorney. He froze. "This is leverage." For once, truth had a voice louder than lies. I listened to Harold call me predictable. My heart pounded not from anger, but from hope. Finally, cracks in their fortress. I submitted the recordings to the judge, along with timestamps, transcripts, and corroborating emails. A hearing was granted. Harold looked stunned. Margaret glared, lips thin. Sarah avoided eye contact. The courtroom felt colder, quieter. I watched their empire wobble just a bit. The judge ordered a delay in custody decisions. My son hugged me after the session, unprompted. "One word, Daddy." For the first time in months, I breathed without pain. The tide had finally shifted. Margaret's charity fund came under review. A journalist contacted me. Curious about discrepancies I hinted at, I handed over files, email trails, bank screenshots. The story ran. Dalton family fund faces scrutiny. Donations dried up overnight. Sarah's business accounts froze. I watched the evening news as Margaret denied all ties. Harold was unavailable for comment. My inbox filled again, but with apologies. For the first time, their lies cost them. Vindication came quietly, but it came. Sarah texted me, first time in months. Just one line: "Did you ever lie to me?" I typed, deleted, rewrote. "Finally, only to protect you from your parents' hate." No reply, but at our next court hearing, she looked different, tired, less certain. Margaret whispered furiously. Harold checked his phone, sweating. I held my ground. The judge reviewed the recordings again. My son sat beside me, holding my hand. We weren't whole, but we were real again. Sarah's therapist testified. She spoke of influence, emotional manipulation, terms that mirrored my claims. Margaret's composure cracked. Harold shifted, jaw tight. The courtroom wasn't clapping. I felt a win. The judge ordered independent evaluations, a joint custody reconsidered. My phone buzzed, an apology from a former client. I believed the wrong story. The world wasn't fixed, but it was less tilted. I walked out, son's drawing in hand, this time with all three figures intact. Margaret tried one last strike, leaked a private video of Sarah and me, edited to imply abuse, but metadata betrayed her. The original file, untouched, showed laughter, intimacy. My attorney acted fast. A restraining order was filed against Margaret. The judge's face was thunderous. "This is manipulation," she said. Harold left mid-hearing. Sarah wept silently. It was the first time I saw shame, not spite, in her eyes. Truth had finally burned through their fog. My tenant who'd first tipped me off testified publicly. Miguel saved my family. She said Harold evicted us out of spite. More voices joined, small brave stories unraveling the Dalton narrative. Community members rallied. A local paper ran the headline, "The Truth Behind the Dalton Drama." My inbox shifted again, support, not suspicion. Sarah remained quiet, but didn't object to shared custody. My son asked if I could build him a treehouse. I promised and meant it. At the final custody hearing, the judge ruled for joint custody. Margaret screamed in court. Harold stormed out. Sarah just stared at the table. I signed the papers with steady hands. Outside, a reporter asked, "Any regrets?" I smiled, only that it took this long. That night, I tucked my son into bed. He asked if I'd be there tomorrow. I said yes. No court, no lawyers, just a promise between father and child. Finally, peace. The Dalton name no longer opened doors. Margaret's charity dissolved. Harold's firm dropped him. They moved to a smaller town. No headlines, no tears, just silence. Sarah restarted therapy. She called once, asked about my son's favorite snacks. Progress, not peace. I rebuilt my business slowly, client by client. Each one, a stone placed with care. I still watched court dates, still filed, but now I lived. And my son's, he never called me visitor again. I framed the ultrasound photo they tried to erase. Hung it in my new office. Clients asked about it. I just smiled. That image, once a weapon, now a reminder. Of survival, of quiet wars won, of a father who refused to vanish. I visit my son weekly. He laughs now, draws family pictures, me in the center, Margaret and Harold. Just background figures. I don't correct him. He knows the truth. That's all that matters now. I sat in the nursery, now quiet reading room, holding the same bib we once picked out together. The silence no longer haunted me. It anchored me. I'd lost a family, but found clarity. My son's laughter downstairs reminded me who I still was. I whispered, "You are enough." Not to him, but to myself. I wasn't broken, just remade. One morning, my son asked why I wasn't in old photos. I said, "Sometimes people get erased before the truth catches up." He nodded, then drew a new picture with me front and center. No prompting, no corrections, just crayons and love. That night, I pinned it beside my desk. My new family portrait. Proof that memory, when earned, can be redrawn brighter than pain. Sarah dropped off our son last weekend. She lingered, watching him onto me. He still remembers, she said. I didn't answer, not out of spite, but peace. We stood in silence. Once lovers, now tethered only by parenthood. She looked tired, less like an enemy, more like someone waking from a long sleep. Some ruins aren't rebuilt, but some truths grow in the cracks they leave behind. The final ruling stood shared custody, supervised transitions, no appeal from Sarah, no protest from Margaret, they never showed. My son now spends weekends building Legos in my kitchen. I volunteer at his school, other parents nod, some even smile. I'm not the man they once read about. I'm just Miguel, a dad with a slow-cooked stew on the stove, and a fridge filled with crayon magnets. They tried to write my ending. I reclaimed the pen. My son asked if people can change. I said yes, but not always the way we hope. He nodded, then hugged me tighter. That night, we watched old home videos. Some featured Sarah. He didn't ask where she was now, just smiled at the memories. I didn't erase them. They're part of our story. But I write the next chapters. With him, beside him, Margaret and Harold's legacy faded. Ours grows stronger with every bedtime story and whispered goodnight.